Welcome to downtown Anchorage. We are starting our walk here on West 10th Avenue. Go ahead and face east, taking your first few steps. Feel the brisk, invigorating breeze that frequently sweeps through these streets, carrying the scent of salt and glacial silt from the neck arm of Cook Inlet just behind us. Take a deep breath of that crisp Alaskan air. Before you take another step, ground yourself in the reality of where you are standing. Long before this grid of paved streets and concrete sidewalks was ever conceived, this was, and still is, the traditional homeland of the Denoina Athabascan people. For thousands of years, they have successfully stewarded this vast, challenging, and beautiful landscape, navigating the deep coastal waters and the dense boreal forests. Now, just a few feet ahead, make a left turn, heading north toward West 9th Avenue. As we walk this short 300-foot stretch toward 9th, let me transport you back in time to the year 1914. Anchorage did not begin as a grand, meticulously planned colonial capital. It was born out of raw, rugged necessity. It started as a sprawling, muddy tent city at the mouth of Ship Creek, serving as a chaotic staging area for the construction of the Alaska Railroad. Thousands of job seekers, timber cutters, prospectors, and opportunistic merchants flooded the shores of this inlet, pitching canvas tents in the cold mud. Today, you are walking on paved sidewalks flanked by modern infrastructure, but just over a century ago, this exact spot was the wild, unruly frontier of American industrial expansion. All right, we have reached the intersection. Turn right onto West 9th Avenue. We are going to be walking straight down 9th for about a third of a mile, so settle into a nice, comfortable, leisurely pace. Look to your right, just to the south. You cannot miss the wide, expansive, impeccably manicured green space running parallel to our path. This is the Delaney Park Strip, and it is arguably the most historically significant parcel of land in Anchorage. When the city was originally surveyed and platted in 1915 by the Alaskan Engineering Commission, this vast area was intentionally cleared of all timber to serve as a firebreak. Its purpose was to divide the original wooden town site from the untamed wilderness, protecting the fragile new settlement from catastrophic forest fires. But as the decades passed and Anchorage evolved, so did the purpose of this land. In 1923, this very strip of grass you are admiring was flattened, graded, and converted into the city's first airfield. Imagine it, small, single-engine bush planes with canvas wings and wooden propellers taking off and landing right here in the middle of town. Aviators would kick up massive clouds of dust, navigate the perilous crosswinds off the inlet, and occasionally have to abort a landing to dodge a wandering moose. It was a perilous and thrilling era of early aviation, and this strip remained an active runway until the larger Merrill Field opened in 1929. During World War II, the United States military commandeered this space, transforming it into a sprawling barrack site to defend the Northern Pacific Theater. Today, it has settled into its role as a beloved community park, hosting everything from vibrant summer music festivals to winter ice skating, a true testament to how this resilient city constantly adapts to its eras. As we continue our walk east along 9th Avenue, lift your gaze and look straight ahead toward the horizon. On a clear day, the jagged snow-capped peaks of the Chugach Mountains completely dominate the skyline. They serve as a constant, breathtaking reminder of the immense, untamed wilderness that surrounds this small pocket of urban life. As you admire the mountains, take a moment to notice the architecture lining the street around you. You might realize that there are very few ornate, century-old brick buildings or delicate masonry structures here. There is a very specific and highly violent reason for that. On March 27, 1964, Good Friday, the earth beneath this very sidewalk tore itself apart. The second most powerful earthquake ever recorded in human history, a staggering magnitude 9.2, struck south-central Alaska. The ground you are walking on shook violently for nearly 5 agonizing minutes. The devastation in downtown Anchorage was apocalyptic. Entire blocks of commercial buildings dropped 20 feet straight down as the clay soil liquefied beneath their foundations. If you take a stroll down 9th Avenue along Anchorage's Delaney Park Strip, you will encounter an immovable iron giant. Resting silently behind a neat, protective fence is a massive, black steam locomotive. To a passing tourist, it is a picturesque slice of history. But to generations of Anchorage residents, this is an old friend. This is Locomotive 556, affectionately known by some railroaders as one of the Gypsy Rose engines. For over 6 decades, it has stood here in the heart of the city. But how did a massive 1943 steam engine end up parked in the middle of a grassy park in Alaska? Our story begins in 1943, right in the thick of World War II. Down in Philadelphia, The Baldwin Locomotive Works was churning out engines for the United States Army Transportation Corps. Locomotive 556 was born as an S-160 Class 280 consolidation type steam locomotive. She was built to be rugged, austere, and tough enough to haul heavy military freight across Europe and North Africa. But 556 never crossed the Atlantic. Instead, in 1945, the Alaska Railroad, desperate for heavy-duty motive power, purchased 556 and a handful of her sister engines as military surplus. They shipped her north to the last frontier. For the next 13 years, Locomotive 556 was the workhorse of the North. Picture this colossal machine battling whiteout blizzards, punching through towering snowdrifts, and navigating the winding, treacherous tracks from the coastal port of Seward, through the emerging city of Anchorage, and all the way deep into the interior to Fairbanks. The crews who ran her did not just fight the bitter cold, they fought the wilderness itself, including the occasional stubborn moose standing on the tracks. Engine 556 helped haul the freight and the people that physically built post-war Alaska. But progress is relentless. By the late 1950s, the era of steam was dying, replaced by the cleaner, more efficient diesel-electric engines. In 1958, her firebox went cold. She was officially retired. Usually, retirement for a steam engine means the scrapyard. But 556 got a second act. In 1959, she was pulled out of storage, hauled over to the Delaney Park Strip, and donated to the city of Anchorage. And this is where her most famous chapter began. For over half a century, Locomotive 556 was the ultimate playground. There were no fences, no restricted areas. If you grew up in Anchorage between 1960 and 2010, chances are you crawled all over this engine. Kids scaled the massive iron wheels, shinnied up the boiler, and sat in the cab, pulling an imaginary whistle while dreaming of riding the rails. It was a ready-made iron fortress, a pirate ship, a spaceship, whatever a kid needed it to be. It even inspired a beloved local children's book, Ol' 556, Alaska's mighty steam engine. But time, and thousands of little boots, took their toll. The engine began to degrade. Rust set in. Vandalism became an issue, and modern safety and environmental standards, specifically regarding the asbestos wrapped around her boiler, could no longer be ignored. But Anchorage was not about to lose its iron giant. A few years ago, cooler heads and dedicated rail fans prevailed. Locomotive 556 underwent a massive community-funded restoration. The asbestos was safely abated. She received a shiny new coat of deep black paint, and a protective fence was erected to keep her safe from further decay. And here is the most beautiful part of her restoration. During the process, several of her functional internal parts were carefully removed and replaced with visual replicas. Those original parts were donated to her sister engine, Locomotive 557, which is currently undergoing a multi-million-dollar restoration just up the road in Wasilla, with a goal of eventually returning to the active tracks. In a very real way, 556 is giving her sister the gift of life. Today, if you walk by Delaney Park, you cannot climb on the roof anymore, and you cannot sneak into the cab. She is a static display, but she stands proud, looking as mighty as she did when she rolled out of the Baldwin factory in 1943. Locomotive 556 will never build up a head of steam again, but as she sits quietly on the edge of downtown Anchorage, she remains a powerful monument to the grit that built Alaska, and a timeless engine of imagination for everyone who stops to admire her. The east-west avenues are numbered, from First Avenue by the water down to where we started, and the north-south streets are lettered. It is an engineer's dream, laid out systematically by federal surveyors over a century ago to impose order on the wilderness. As we continue north, you should begin to see our destination, the Anchorage Museum, looming ahead on the right-hand side of the street. The museum is a cultural anchor for the entire state. It first opened its doors in 1968, precisely at the dawn of the Great Alaskan Oil Boom. It began as a relatively modest exhibition space, built to celebrate the centennial of the United States purchase of Alaska from the Russian Empire. But much like Anchorage itself, the museum refused to remain small. Over the past several decades, it has grown exponentially in both size and scope, continuously expanding its physical footprint and its mission. We are now approaching the main museum complex, and our path is about to get a little bit intricate as we navigate the pedestrian plaza leading up to the grand entrance. Pay close attention to your surroundings here. Go ahead and turn right, stepping off the main public sidewalk of C Street and into the museum's exterior perimeter. Walk forward for just a short distance, taking in the transition from the bustling street to the quiet plaza. Now, turn left. Take a moment as you walk this path to observe the striking modern landscape architecture beneath your feet and around you, designed to withstand the brutal freeze and thaw cycles of the Alaskan winter. Take a few more steps toward the building, and turn right again. You can see the entrance coming clearly into view now. Finally, make one last left turn. You are now standing directly before the stunning, sprawling facade of the Anchorage Museum. Stop here for a moment and simply look up. If you are facing the newer Rasmussen Wing, designed by the acclaimed international architect David Chipperfield, you will immediately notice the incredible 4-story mirrored glass facade. This was not just an aesthetic choice, it was deeply intentional. The glass is specifically designed to reflect the dramatic, ever-changing Alaskan sky, the passing clouds, and the distant mountains. It acts as a massive visual mirror, literally blending this massive repository of human history into the incredible natural landscape of the state. Inside these doors lies the largest and most comprehensive museum in Alaska. It holds the vibrant, surviving stories of the northern people. When you walk inside, you will find incredible galleries of contemporary Alaskan art that challenge the traditional, romanticized views of the last frontier. You will find exhaustive historical archives detailing the Russian era, the gold rushes, and the pipeline days. Most importantly, you will find the Smithsonian Arctic Studies Center. This groundbreaking space houses hundreds of priceless indigenous Alaskan artifacts, masks, armor, and tools, many of which were returned to Alaskan soil for the very first time in over a century, curated with direct consultation from Alaskan native elders and scholars. You have successfully completed your walk from the historic fire breaks of the early rail days to the modern, dynamic cultural heart of the city. Head on through those doors, warm up, and immerse yourself in the incredible, complex history and art of Alaska. Enjoy your time at the Anchorage Museum.
Turn right. It's mostly clothing and hats, just so you know.